You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. So it begins again. Welcome to CreepGeeks Podcast. This is Season 9, Episode 333.
Stranded astronauts, box demon, spyplane over North Carolina, conspiracy theorists are spiteful, and lab-grown food.
Yeah. So it begins again. Welcome to the podcast. If it's your very first time tuning in, we're glad you're here. And if you swing by and listen all the time, we're really glad you're here.
Yeah.
Big hugs. Big, long hugs.
What in the world?
Just let it happen.
Just big, long, socially awkward hugs.
That's right. Let it happen.
Fantastic.
It's all good. Okay, so anyway, in this particular podcast, we talk about paranormal weird news and stuff like that. I'm Greg.
I'm Omi.
And we broadcast our podcast from deep in the underground bunker mountains of western North Carolina. Right, where we talk about stuff. We just recently survived a rainstorm.
Oh, gosh.
In our little spot. We're kind of protected in this little cove/alcove, and it was allegedly going to bring 5 to 6 inches of rain and all this stuff, and I'm sure some people got that. It's kind of scary for us because it's like, oh, man, here we go. We've had no rain for a while, and the last big rainstorm I paid attention to is in September, Hurricane Helene, and it sort of geographically changed the area in which we live and other people's lives forever. So now that we're all scared about it.
They're seriously.
And reasonably, I mean, it's a reasonable thing. It's like, oh, man. And we started, like, making sure we had plenty of water and power options and, like, making sure all the dusting off the old internet, you know?
Yeah.
Like Gilligan's Island with the 2 coconuts and the radio thing going on, cranking it up.
But for real, though, one of the overarching themes of, like, just local social media talk has been people who have a little bit of a PTSD about the situation. Like, as soon as it starts raining hard, some of these people, like, some of them who have younger kids, they're like, the kids are getting a little freaked out because it's raining so hard.
Yeah, let's just call it anxiety versus, because for a while there, everybody threw around PTSD as a term for anything that would cause anxiety.
But it's even in, like, the dogs and the cats.
No, I get it. It's definitely an anxiety when storms come.
You know.
But we were supposed to have, like, crazy thunder and all that stuff, and I didn't hear any of it.
I did. When I went on my little hike, it's all south of us.
Well,
and then,
that's what I'm saying. We're kind of in this weird spot. We're sort of protected, but.
And then, unfortunately, Beach Mountain caught on fire. So that's not good.
No.
And it was lightning, so.
You know, I'd rather have lightning start a fire than a bunch of people just burning stuff randomly, sitting, you know, it's a burn day, and they just, like, burning Amazon cardboard boxes, and the whole county catches on fire.
Yeah.
Kind of is what it is. So even so, we recently got Spectrum Internet, broadband. It came and installed it, a little fiber optic action, and guess what? It rained. Totally lost it. Had no internet. Yeah. So I had to go and switch over to Starlink, and I'm like, I don't understand. Is this the way it's going to be? In the year 2025, it rains and you lose the fastest fiber, 600 meg average.
And it was out from like
2-3 hours.
7:30 a.m. till about 11:30.
Yeah, see, that's unacceptable. And then you go to the website and you check, or if you can, you go to the app or website and it's like, any outages in my area? And they're like, no. And they're like, oh, let's troubleshoot. I'm like, great, let me turn it off for 30 seconds to hold my mouth just right and maybe it'll come back. And I'm like, man. And so I was thinking, well, maybe, I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking, but I know it was raining really hard, and I fired up the old Starlink, and Starlink didn't give a damn. It was like, yeah. How much internet you want? You have all you want as long as it's under 200 meg, right? So now I'm like, are we going to, what do we do here?
Yeah.
And then, I thought about it, and it's because I'm gun shy. Helene, we had no power, we had internet, so we could communicate, we could send text messages, we could do that kind of stuff. We could call over Wi-Fi if we needed to. And we get this, super fast, blazing fast internet. But if it's going to rain and take us out and we have no communication ability, because nobody knows where you are unless you tell them.
Yeah.
And if you call EMS or fire department and say, here's where I am, they're going to go, where is that?
Yeah.
And you're going to have to tell them, turn left at the loose cow who got out of the fence, who may or may not be friendly.
Yeah.
And we can't go up to it because we've made enough fun of tourists going up to or bisons and stuff. And I don't need to be flipping across the road,
Like our local first responders and EMS, fire, rescue, police, they had to get Starlink to deal with like Verizon being down and all these other cell phone companies
and
Spectrum being down. And, I got to talk to a few of them. They're keeping half of it because they're not going to, granted.
Yeah, they will never be in that position again.
Ever.
And neither will we.
Yeah. And like EMS even, I gave them a recommendation about the backpack thing, and now there's 2 backpacks.
Man, I just wish it wasn't $600.
I know.
Because I would get it. I'd strap that thing to my head and run around.
And those backpacks helped getting up the mountains and getting to some really hard to reach places,
Yeah.
So.
And we did check our phones have satellite capability through T-Mobile, but it's just for text right now, so that is an option. But, I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Delay your podcast. It's like, may or may not have signals. Anyway, that's enough about our own personal struggles, right? And there's worse struggles to have for sure. But okay, so moving into the podcast. Last podcast, we actually talked about a statue, a Sasquatch statue, that had one of its arms ceremoniously cut off. And in that segment, we were talking about it. It never occurred to me a traumatic event that I seen one time.
Oh.
I was a youngster. Mm-hmm. This is in the 70s. Some of you guys weren't even around then. Right? Mm-hmm. But it was like, I'm trying to figure out I don't know how to communicate the scale of how it shocked the shit out of me as a little kid.
You were shook.
Shook doesn't do it justice, man. It was like, whoa!
Yeah.
So it was incredible. And I didn't pick up on it. And then, Beans from Alaska, who basically does Alasquatch and all of his social stuff, called the podcast, left a message, and as soon as he started talking and he said, we're of the same age, I instantly knew what he was trying to say. And I was like, you got me, man. You know what I mean? He's like, you got me, dude. So we're going to play that for you right now.
Hey, guys, it's Beans from Alaska. I just got done listening to episode 332 there, and I just wanted to tell you, you guys were talking about the Bigfoot statue that had the arm removed. Well, I used my amazing deductive detective powers that I honed through my years of law enforcement, and I think I've cracked the case. And I'm actually kind of surprised that Greg didn't pull up on this either, being that him and I are both of a certain age. But I think your suspect in that case is a gentleman named Steve Austin. He's reported to have been part of a secret government experiment that replaced his human organic parts with bionic parts. And from what I understand, he's pretty prone to ripping off the right arms of Sasquatch. In fact, there's several documentaries on this that came out in the 70s. So anyway, if you guys want to pass that information on to the law enforcement there, I'll be happy to take credit for that. And, looks like Bean solves another one.
Yeah, he got me. He called me out. So, yeah, and as a fun segue, or just I don't know if it's really a segue or not. In the last podcast, we talked about the X-37B space plane. Mm-hmm. And it's like a lifting body kind of setup and how it looks. It looks almost like a small space shuttle with sort of some weird wings going on.
Yeah.
Which looks remarkably similar to the spacecraft that Steve Austin crashed on the tarmac and rolled over and exploded. A big dramatic opening scene of how he became bionic.
Oh.
Looks almost like the same thing. So Beans inadvertently tied in one thing to the other and then called me out all at the same time. And rightfully so, because as soon as he said that, I was like, oh, man, he got me. Yeah, that's right. But yeah, the episode he's talking about, I don't know what it was called exactly, but in the $6 Million Man, he's in California, running around the woods because Bigfoot's out there. Now, him and Bigfoot get in a fight, right?
Yeah.
And then he goes to do some crazy judo hip throw thing, and he turns around and grabs his arm, and he goes through it, and he just winds up ripping it off. And then Bigfoot's standing there with his eyes all weird, going, oh, and his arms like sparking and being weird, as I remember it. And he just runs off.
Wait.
Like all Bigfoot speed.
It was sparking?
Yeah, because see, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
For those in the 70s who already know what I'm talking about, but anybody else who probably doesn't. He was a robot.
Oh, so kind of like the theories that Bigfoot is actually like a
drone?
Yeah, a drone or a vehicle that Greys use?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's where that
It gets even deeper
from.
because it goes into other episodes where there's an alien race who's been put on the planet. They observe and all this stuff, and they've been changing history. And they've been like UFO seen and all sorts of crazy stuff.
So you're saying...
And so Steve Austin winds up getting his memory erased so he can't inadvertently give away their location and what they're doing.
So what you're basically saying is...
So it's UFO abduction.
Half of
sightings.
the UFO theories and conspiracies out there may actually be based on the $6 Million Man.
No, I think the $6 Million Man based it off of In Search Of.
Oh.
Because they're right around the same time. I don't know the years exactly because it also depended on how you got to see the TV. Because $6 Million Man came on regular television, whereas a lot of the In Search Of stuff came on like UHF, the lower dials that you never went to.
Oh.
On weeknights because you had the top dial you turned for the big name shows like ABC, CBS, and NBC, and then the bottom dial was like PBS and random local crap. It was like tunk, 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 trying to get it to come in there. Because we didn't have cable in my area until like I'm sure it was available, but it wasn't like readily available, and it wasn't a big cable boom until like maybe the 80s, like 81. Yeah.
Okay.
When they were like, hey, if we make cable less expensive, people might pay for it.
Oh.
And then in 81 is when MTV fired up the very first time. I remember watching it at my neighbor's house because we didn't have cable. He was like right next door anyway, like literally right next door.
Yeah.
And it was like, right there. When they did these things, they played music videos. Music and video together.
Yeah.
Not the crap they got now of like, I don't even know if they're still on, like T-Mom and I think it's mainly just ridiculousness. That's all I ever see. I don't even know where that is anymore. And then later on, when MTV started sliding into reality-based TV and all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. VH1 became popular. And as an adult, I switched over to VH1. And now I think that's gone.
I think both of them have kind of gone to either reality TV or TV talk show format.
No, it's just ridiculousness.
Just that show.
Yeah. And that guy's smart because you send him your videos, right? So he can include it on the show. Mm-hmm. And then he would say, hey, since you've gave us a video, you release all the rights to it so we own the video so we can show it on MTV. And people are like, yeah, okay. And they do that. And then what did he do? Hey, MTV, you got to like rent these videos for me. You got to buy these videos.
Oh.
So MTV pays him to have the show, and then they have to pay him for the licensed content.
Okay.
Which is one of the reasons why a lot of the stuff that we found, a couple different things, like the one that you found and put up on the internet, it sort of went viral. And the Japanese people kept calling all the time, the Japanese shows, and they're like, hey, we want to put your show on or put your video clip on Japanese television. And we were like, that's cool. Read the fine print. Oh, I give this to you for use in perpetuity.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the other company, one of these paranormal call on camera type shows. That may actually be the one where we got an email saying, hey, we would like to use your Brown Mountain Lights and some other stuff, footage. And then we read it, and it's like, oh, wait a minute. You can own my footage and any other footage that's associated with. And at the time, what were we doing? We were like, hey, talking to Seth Breedlove. We're like, here you go, man. Here's a clip for you, right? And the way it read is that if we turned around and gave them the footage to use, then they could turn around and try to say that, oh, anything that Small Town Monsters releases that has that video clip in it will belong to them.
Yeah.
And so that Seth would lose money.
Yeah.
Like Seth Breedlove and Small Town Monsters.
Yeah.
Because they could take it. And when we ask in an email to that dude who sent us email, is this a possibility for happening? And he's like, well, no. If you don't want to do it, then just don't do it. And it's like, oh, so that's a yes. If you're going to be that aggressive with it, then that's a yes.
Well, then that was the thing. If you're going to be that aggressive about it,
then you know it's a yes. Yeah. It's like, hey, I'm older and I can see bullshit.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're doing here. Oh, you're going to be indignantly mad about it because it's true. Yeah. It's like, no, you're not getting any clips from us. They're not the best clips in the world.
That's one thing.
However,
that's
no
one
sucker
thing
here.
We need to go out and do soon. Because it's a good season too.
Okay, well, why don't you tell everybody, because I don't know what you're talking about.
It's getting close to Ghost Light season. So Brown
maybe.
Mountain Lights, some increased reports.
If we can even get up there.
We can.
So.
Yeah. They just opened up a couple of roads. Not that anybody listening knows, but 221's open,
Okay,
226 is open.
Let's not give them the numbers, and they don't know. They don't care.
Yeah.
If you do care, you can call us, because we have a toll-free number.
Yeah.
Where you can call and leave a message like Beans from Alasquatch did.
Yep. That phone number is going to be 575-208-4025. And you can also reach out to us on social media. We're pretty much on every single platform. So look for CreepGeeks Pod or just CreepGeeks Podcast. You'll find us. Yep.
So, yeah, it's nice. Anyway, moving back into the podcast, as I'm going to talk about some news. Mm-hmm. So that was our tie-in to the previous podcast, because if we have something we can follow up on, that's where we put it. But in the news section, and this has been something we've talked about a couple different times in previous podcast episodes about the stranded astronauts.
Yeah.
That are up on the space station. And it was like, oh, we'll get you guys in a couple months, and then we'll get you this. And the last time we talked about it was the idea that SpaceX was fighting with the FAA. I think it was FAA. Anyway, about fines and not being able to do things and testing and stuff. So it was going to delay their ability to send a capsule up to grab these people. Well, here it is 9 months later.
Yeah.
9 months, these two astronauts have been up in the space station. They weren't even supposed to be there, but I think for like maybe not even a month. It was something crazy.
8 days. They were only supposed to be up there for 8 days.
That's even worse. 8 days.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, it's cool, man. We'll come get you next time around.
Yeah.
It's like 3 months later. Oh, sorry. And then it's all of a sudden 3 more months later. And then here it is 9 months later. SpaceX capsule docked.
Yeah.
To the space station so that they can hopefully prepare to return after 9 months of being in space.
No, there was supposed to be a 2-day handover.
Yeah, we call that a turnover in the military, where you turn over your information to your relief.
There's the other concern: weather needs to cooperate, and what do we have going on here in many parts of North America?
Yeah, storms.
Lots of storms and weird weather. So let's just hope that by the end of this week they're coming down.
Yeah, so. Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams will hopefully be able to come home. They were there for supposed to be for 8 days, but because of technical issues with the experimental a spacecraft they arrived on, which I believe was Boeing, and that piece of crap Starliner. And I'm fully aware of how complicated those machines are. But that thing had problems and problems and problems, and it's like, why? Why are they trying so hard with like NASA and the government and everything to use Boeing when Boeing has proven itself to be problematic? When you've got, Starlink is a wonderful communication system, and then you've got SpaceX, which is basically, it might as well just say SpaceX / NASA.
Yeah. So I think,
why don't they just put the money there? And I just don't get it. So.
I kind of think, because I've been watching this one TikToker who kind of went into it a little bit, and his rationale is that kind of like with like even small government, like state government or something like that, you've got a contract that is billable hours and what's already been spent or already allocated. Like, were they trying to eat up all their Boeing hours or the Boeing terms of that contract and just let them keep fumbling until they could move on and actually utilize what's in the other contract?
Yeah, well.
So
that seems to be pretty wasteful.
It is. And it's number one complaint with a lot of government contract stuff. So,
especially now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was reading this, and you start to see things where people are like, why are we giving Elon Musk all that money?
Oh, here's one.
You're not. You're giving Starlink / SpaceX money. I mean, come on. They actually, without SpaceX, we can't go to space, and they've proven they can do it, and it's cheaper because they keep reusing rockets. They keep recycling. And I even watched that thing on a guy that's been 3D printing rockets, and it's just the same cost almost.
And there's just such a variation in the small or moderate risks using the Boeing Starliner.
Yeah.
That NASA decided it's not even worth it to take that small risk trying to bring them back when they have the existing option of returning them on SpaceX's Dragon.
Yeah.
And there's a quote in here, and it's like, it's not a good look for Boeing to see astronauts they took into space come back in a competitor's craft.
Too bad.
Well, fix your
I get it.
thruster situation or whatever the biggest problem was, you know?
And, you know, and there was a way to get people off. They have another, I think it's a Soyuz capsule connected to it. So if something goes wrong, they can get out. But I don't think they can all fit.
Oh, gosh.
So imagine that. It's like, okay, guys, it's like rock, paper, scissors, Vulcan, lizard, Spock, or whatever. When I see watching Big Bang Theory reruns, where it's like, who wants to ride in Boeing on the way home? It ain't like you can just jump in your old ejecto pod from all the, you know, escape pod action from all the like sci-fi shows we had. Just, I don't know.
Wow.
I wouldn't want to be up there for 9 months. Can you imagine?
No.
I was in the Navy when we were deployed for a while, and it's like come home.
Don't you start
time to come home? You're like, what? What do you mean we can't? We're going to be 2 days longer, and you just get crazy. These people are. Hey,
yeah.
We know things a little rough. We know we only said you're only going to be out here for a week. They're like Gilligan up there, right?
Yeah.
3-hour tour, an 8-day tour, right? But can we extend you 9 days, 9 months? I hope these people are getting paid. So I want that to be, you owe me 9 months of overtime.
Not just pay, but here's the thing. If you are supposed to be deployed or going into space for long term, they actually have to change everything, like your physical fitness routine, your diet, the supplements you take, because like as early as like 3 months, you start to lose bone density. There's other effects to like your cardiovascular system, stuff like that. They were only supposed to be up there for 8 days, so they only had maybe a partially modified diet for a month and a half.
Yeah.
When you have to go up there for like, I remember following this one astronaut, and it was like they were supposed to be up in space for like 3 months, and they had to start like a whole year of eating differently, and just the way they worked out had to change because of the way your body moves in space. I mean, they're probably not feeling too great, and, you know, the mental health aspect of it.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Well, the relief astronauts came up so they can swap out.
Yeah.
And they had live footage of them being so happy. Like, yay! I'd be like, dude, I'm so glad to see you.
Yeah.
Like, you know, yeah. So we'll see. Hopefully they get back safe and sound and all that.
Yeah.
But can you imagine, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months later, they're going, hey, you guys want to go back up there again? I'd be like, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I got a lot of stuff to do, and I just planted some bushes. Something, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to sweeten the pot and be like, hey, we'll give you comp days. Take a couple comp days off. You know what I mean?
Stop.
We'll throw you a pizza party, give you some comp days. Yeah, so hopefully the weather will cooperate and they can come back. So I just, you know, I always like the crazy hair. Whenever somebody's like, you know, it's all fake. They're not really up there. It's all fake. And you see these women with the crazy hair flying around.
Yeah.
I kind of think that's the reason why they do that.
To consistently show that they are in space.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're like, hey, just pull it back out of your face, but let that just stuff float around free.
Okay.
Because, I mean, you know, you can't really create that or recreate that in a way that would be easy to do, like on live TV or something, to say, hey, this is fake.
Okay.
Because if you really think about it, think about where all that loose hair goes. And just down here on the planet, it's all in the drain. It's a thing. It's everywhere, right?
Okay.
Imagine up there.
Don't they have like special vacuums?
I hope so.
Like that just like constantly get lint and probably
skin cells, epithelials, if you've watched enough of this crime shows, like CSI stuff. Weird hair. Recycled farts.
Stop.
And they're drinking their own urine. They do.
Stop.
Dehydrated, freeze-dried poops. Did they bring it back to the planet instead of blasting that stuff towards the sun? I think they pack it up and bring it back.
Okay.
I think the urine that can't get recycled goes out as ice crystals or something. So can you imagine being on that trip on the way back? I bet that stuff stinks. Going through the atmosphere, things get a little warm. All that freeze-dried poops.
Okay.
So, yep. So, I did see this article, and it kind of got me thinking, if we can't get people up to the space station and off in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
You know, the article that I'm looking at was like, Elon Musk outlines ambitious plan to send humans to Mars by as early as 2029. That's like 4 years from now.
Yeah.
I think we still got a long way to go.
Well, I mean, when's that asteroid supposed to hit us? 2036? I think we're cutting it kind of close, honestly.
Maybe he's trying to get off. We got to get out of here. Got to get off the planet and stuff. And, of course, whenever you mention Mars at all, there's all the face on Mars, structures on Mars, pyramids on Mars.
Oh, 2032.
All that stuff is starts to kind of come back up again. Mm. I'm trying to think of, was it Richard Hoagland? He's the big face on Mars guy. He does Mars and the moon and stuff. He's usually on Coast to Coast. And they show.
Yeah, Richard C. Hoagland.
Yeah. And some of the earlier pictures where, depending on the angle everything was taken from, yes, it does look like a face on Mars. But then you get like a newly updated NASA picture from another brand new satellite flying over. It's like, no, man. And that's pretty embarrassing pareidolia if you set your whole career based off of these images on the moon.
Yeah.
/ Mars. And, a spacecraft flies by and goes, nope, it's just a pointy little mound. And the shadows were just right for you to think it looked like a face. I don't know. But yeah, so evidently there's going to be a timeline, an ambitious timeline to get people on Mars by 2029. Yep. He says Starship will be ready, even though it recently had an explosion. And I was going to put that in here.
Yeah.
About they launched the Eagle, what is it, the big starship? Falcon X or whatever it is. They launched it and something happened and it blew up. And I was going to put a little part where they said it had a rapid deceleration, something. Basically, it blew up, right? But the way they described it, I was like, I need to save this so I could say, it experienced a rapid deceleration, whatever it was, event. But I didn't. But yeah, so he reiterated that he wanted to send Starship to Mars by the end of 2026 with one of the Tesla Optimus robots at the helm.
Okay.
So this is like all sci-fi movies and stuff that we see. We just seem to be clicking right along with this whole thing.
Yeah.
Except we just seem to be just letting AI just do whatever it wants. We're not. So if any of this happens, right, if science fiction starts to become science fact, we should learn about this. We should be like, well, if we're going to do the same thing, and it's always going to end badly. It always does. But we don't seem to care. I mean, AI shouldn't be allowed to be as smart as it is. You get AI, let's mix it with some quantum computing, and that's the end of us.
True.
I believe that because there's no, the logic. They won't give these AI machines emotions and make them purely logical when they should give us emotion or give them emotions. But they should be writing in the rules like Ray Bradbury or whoever it was. Was it Bradbury?
Isaac Asimov.
Asimov? Yeah, with the laws like don't harm humans.
Yeah.
But then they'll just do some sort of AI chess move and be like, well, we didn't harm the human. This human killer robot that we created is the one harming the human, and they'll justify it. I don't know. But the idea of launching Starship with its own little robot, Tesla Optimus robot, humanoid robot, what's he going to do? Is he just there to push buttons, or is he just there to kind of sit in the cockpit and look cool, just like when they launched this Tesla Roadster into space? Or is he really doing a secret mission so we can see what's going on? Maybe there really is maybe there's a whole civilization on Mars that we don't know about.
Like he's trying to check it out beforehand.
Yeah, maybe he's going to take them out.
Okay.
So it just kind of depends. It just seems kind of premature for all this stuff to be going down like that. It just seems like there's a whole lot more going on. But if they have a little robot, I was just thinking about Alien, with the synthetic humans they had.
Yeah.
And then I just watched Blade Runner again. And it's like, I just don't know if it's going to work or not. But yeah, it just seems like there's a little premature to make that statement. It's like 4 years away. We're going to go to Mars. I don't know. Are they going to send Starship to Mars and try to have it come back, or what are they going to do?
I don't know.
I mean, because this thing says he wants to send Starship to Mars by the end of 2026. I mean, I guess that's the next step, to get it out there and see if it can actually make it to Mars. Is it going to come back? What are they going to do with it? That's a big thing, just to smash into the planet. I mean, we're just polluting up there anyway, right? I mean, we've got like weird stuff on the moon, and we're just going to start smashing satellites and just starships on Mars.
Like all the intelligent life in the galaxy is like, yeah, we don't talk to them. They're just filthy. They just dump their trash everywhere.
Like, these guys need to come get their little robot cars. These poor guys.
Yeah.
Out there all by itself. Can you imagine being a programmer at NASA and you have your little rovers out there, and you could hurt everybody's feelings? Just have it as its last little sign off. I'm so cold.
Stop.
Yeah.
It's getting dark.
It's getting dark.
It's getting dark.
I'm so tired.
That was so sad.
Yeah.
Stop.
Almost as sad as Fry's dog waiting for him for 100 years.
Don't. Why did you have to trigger me like that? Oh, my gosh.
That was awful. I never seen that before, and then I seen it, and it made me very sad and angry all at the same time.
That was oh, my gosh. That, like...
if you know what we're talking about with Fry's dog, if you actually have made it 31 minutes and 23 seconds into the podcast, it's pretty scary. It's not scary. It's pretty sad. Man. And anyway, enough.
You've just ruined my day.
Well, speaking of, I was going a little bit out of order. Speaking of Spiteful.
Oh, okay.
So I read this and it angered me.
Yeah.
And so I put it in here just to spite it, right? The idea. It's just like, if you read this article and everything we talk about is in the show notes, if you go to CreepGeeks.com, it just sort of got me, it made me sort of like, well, all right, whatever. Like, who are you? So it was very angry, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the link.
So this link is by Study Finds, and I believe Study Finds, they put this under the Society and Culture section of their website.
Oh,
yeah.
That just makes it better, right?
And apparently this research was led by David S. Gordon, University of Staffordshire, I guess, and it's fact-checked and verified, allegedly.
By who?
StudyFinds.com.
By David S. whatever his name is?
.org, I should say.
Oh.
But they put in a nutshell at the top of this article, and it explains that spite, a desire to level the playing field at a personal cost, appears to drive conspiracy beliefs when people feel disadvantaged compared to experts or authorities.
That's a nice way of saying you're getting mad because you're so stupid.
Yeah.
That you won't take my logic.
But then the next bullet point is, rather than simply being misinformed, conspiracy theorists may be responding to perceived competitive disadvantages in a psychologically meaningful way.
Again, you're stupid, and you don't have the mental capacity.
No, that's more along the lines of feeling intimidated or inferior. Addressing conspiracy theories effectively requires more than just providing accurate information. It means tackling underlying feelings of disadvantage, powerlessness, and inequity. So, I would take this in a different direction. I would not necessarily say that it's spite. I do feel that some people who, not necessarily conspiracy theories, but other things.
Well, okay, so tries to make it nice by saying, the next time you encounter someone who firmly believes the moon landing was faked or that climate change is a hoax, consider this. Their stance may be driven less by ignorance and more by spite. And recent research from British universities suggests that conspiracy theories often serve as psychological equalizers, ways for people who feel disadvantaged to symbolically challenge those in power, even at their own expense. So, way to talk down to everybody who thinks differently than what.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And I'm reading this and I'm like, okay. I think back to one of the things I've referred to about 100 times on the podcast when you had somebody from New York saying that the people that were in West Virginia, in Sutton, West Virginia, that they didn't actually see Mothman.
Okay.
What they seen was a big ass barn owl.
Okay. Or a heron type thing.
A big bird, right? So they didn't actually see that. They just seen a heron or a big bird or a barn owl.
Yeah.
Totally discounting that those people have lived there their entire lives. Mm-hmm. They're not in New York, in the city. They're in the country where they've seen stuff. I would wager they've seen way more weird natural stuff than anybody in New York City has seen.
Okay.
Just completely discounting that part of it and saying, oh, you didn't see this. You really seen that. So since you believe you've seen this, you must be psychologically ignorant or whatever. You're spiteful, whatever. And it's like, hold on a second. Let's look at this. If I lived in New York City, let's do even better. We live in the mountains of Western North Carolina.
Okay.
Let's take us and put us in the desert.
Okay.
And if I was to try to describe to you like a Jerusalem cricket with a big bulbous head and the screaming that thing makes.
Yeah.
Right. As me coming from the mountains and being in the desert, somebody who lives in the desert would say, oh, well, what you've seen is this.
Yeah.
Do you think they would try to belittle you and do all that stuff? No. But looking at it from the other way around, if somebody from New Mexico, for example, tried to explain to me this Jesus Jerusalem cricket thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you didn't see that. What you're actually describing is just a regular cricket. And just discounted everything.
Yeah.
Or no, that's a termite.
Yeah.
Because you're equating it to what you know.
Yeah.
But not being, intelligent enough or wise enough or aware enough that a lot of these scientists and people have to go, maybe I don't exactly know. Here's what I think it could be, but at the same time, I can't really say that what I'm saying that this bug is. And you get none of that from a lot of people. A lot of people that are like, I'm from academia and this is what it is. And it's just like, you shut your face, man.
And I don't like that this is their explanation, this academia.
Yeah, the reason why you're pushing back is because you're just being spiteful. We're not going to call you stupid per se. You're just a spiteful human who doesn't want to hear it.
Whereas when I come across a theory that I'm like, no, I can't even entertain that.
Yeah, I mean, flat Earth and the moon landing, those I don't prescribe it. The moon landing is not fake.
And then somebody tries to disagree with me or basically counter and support whatever it is. I don't think spite first off. I think intimidated by the technology or concept. And then the second, I think, like, especially like the hee-haw or pushback you may get when you're talking things out, a fear that makes you hold on to something that may be familiar. A fear and a tendency to hold on to familiarity, like concepts you can grasp, So not spite, but just this pushback.
Well,
like, I'm going to hold on to what I do comprehend.
Or the spite could be, dude, you're from New York. You have no idea what you're talking about. And for you to discount what I'm saying based off your smugness, your arrogance, the things that you think you know, but actually having been there, experienced it, seen it, and discounting the fact that I have real-world experience, I'm going to be a little spiteful or I'm going to be a little aggravated with you, and then you read it as being spite. Oh, they're just being spiteful. It's like, hold on a second. You discount everything that I can draw off of because you're going to try to use your knowledge and intellect and being in a place, right? And you think it's just more advanced all the way around because you're in the big city, for example. That's the way I look at it. I'm looking at some of this, aggravation, this pushback of being like,
oh, I'll see the aggravation. I don't know. Like, I'm coming from it. Like, what if I'm the scientist trying to explain this nuanced concept? And when it's that, I'm trying to recognize or recall any instances where somebody has spitefully disagreed with me. And that's I'm struggling with because I don't think anybody's ever come at me with
that being
spite,
said, they're they're British. This guy's British and he's just calling it spite, which is just a nice way of saying you're just an angry dumbass because I'm showing you my logic of why you're wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like, back up, beans on toast. Let me tell you a little something. Because that's what we get. It's the same way when we have scientists in academia and people today that look back on cavemen and go, oh, they're just so dumb.
Yeah.
They didn't know any better. I can't believe they wrote on walls and made art. and made music. That's crazy because we can't necessarily relate. We look at the information we have about them and we don't realize they were the most advanced things on the planet for their time. So we're just shocked that they made shoes. What? They made shoes? You know what I mean? We're shocked that they migrated with the seasons. What? How did they know to do that? Because we're so damn smart and they're not. It's like, let's put it where it needs to be. They were as smart as they could possibly be for the time. Now, you take one of these modern people and throw them back in caveman times, they're not going to last long.
Yeah.
The situation's different. The environment's different. The intellect is different. The knowledge, the natural knowledge that cavemen had for being out and living in the woods doesn't compare to somebody reading about it and living in a city in an AC or climate-controlled box.
Okay.
And I'll go to this. I will trust a Bigfoot investigator who shows up to take us out to go look at Sasquatch or try to find Sasquatch wearing a pair of jeans, a T-shirt, and sneakers carrying a stick than somebody wearing $1,000 worth of Gore-Tex and all the REI stuff they could get and all this latest and greatest stuff. Who am I going to trust more? Person who lives it. That person knows exactly what they need to do what they got to do. The REI guy doesn't have a clue. I'll have everything in the world just in case I need it. He's got a walking stick, a knife, maybe a gun for bears, a decent pair of boots, and that's it. He knows what he's going to be doing because he lives it. He's out there. He's experienced it.
So all that just made me think of this thing, and it's not totally related, but with all the weird weather that's been happening, there was a meme that came out this week, and it just showed like a big foggy expanse of land, and it said, "Oh no, New Mexicans can't figure out which way is east or west because the fog and the snow have been so heavy that you couldn't see the Sandia Mountains."
Oh, yeah.
And it made me think back to a conversation I had with a bunch of coworkers, and one of them, he had to evaluate the building and mark the exits, and he's like, how the heck am I supposed to know which way east is? And I just kind of looked at him, and there was me, and then there's this person who claims they always hike, and they go outside and all other stuff, and they're like, man, I don't really know. And I looked at both of them, I'm like, that's east, and I pointed out the window at the Sandia Mountains. And it was like, I kind of blew their minds. And I was like, you've lived here, because we'd only lived there for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
And these are people who have been here for a much longer time, one of them his whole life. And they're like, why would you, what? And I had to explain, the Sandia Mountains are east of Albuquerque, and they are a marker for navigating and all this other stuff. And they got combative about it. And then,
they got spiteful?
Yeah, no. And I was like, go outside right now with your phone, lay your phone flat, use the compass app, and you'll come back up here and you'll tell me I'm right. And yeah, they came back up and didn't speak to me the rest of the day.
You should say who that person is.
No.
So you should just say who it is.
It's,
just use their first name.
no.
Just go ahead.
Anyways, it just reminded me of that whole feeling disadvantaged of not knowing that information or not realizing that information. And then that meme came up and people were like, what are you talking about? And it just reminded me of...
It just kind of reminds me of the whole city slickers thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
City slickers come down and all of a sudden they think they're experts and they're not.
And see,
then the other way around, you got Crocodile Dundee where he goes to New York and he's like, it's sort of the same thing.
I wasn't the one decked out in
even
REI
better.
hiking gear.
Was it Country Mouse and City Mouse?
Yeah.
So, I know, but...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't the one decked out in hiking gear, but at least I knew where east and west was.
Yeah.
So, and then...
I just bring enough stuff to where I just want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be uncomfortable. You know what I mean? I don't. It's like, all right.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, it's part of the experience. I've had some experiences. So just put that in my category. I've already experienced that.
I mean, now that we're on the East
Coast.
If
I could bring a jacket that had built-in air conditioning, I would. I'd be in the woods, Sasquatch, right? Sasquatch hunters with loud AC, just like, woo! This AC's great, guys. And they'd be like, can you please be quiet? Sasquatch is going to know you're there. He already knows we're there. The Sasquatch is a ghost. Yeah. So anyway, moving back into the podcast, this is something you may or may not like.
Okay.
They caught, or they had the identity of the box demon. This is something you showed me. That I don't know if people know this or not, but on Ring cameras, there was a paper plate mask person coming up to Ring cameras and saying something about boxes or whatever, and it looked all like weird in the camera.
Yeah.
And people were really like, "Oh, what is that?" And I don't know what they're doing or whatever, but it looked just unusual, right?
And I don't know.
So evidently they got caught or identified, and then it started to go around where we started seeing, box demon footage from other places where other people are jumping on it and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I couldn't figure out
like, this is dumb.
If the box demon stuff we saw started because of this masked box demon in Pennsylvania, or if this was already trending. Because when I was trying to look at the dates on some of these videos, it's just repost after repost, which made me realize in this day and age, the way to start an urban legend is via the repost option on social media.
Yeah.
So I have no idea where the box demon started from. And if I keep trying to dig for more than 15 minutes on TikTok or Reels, I still can't figure it out.
Yeah, because there's nothing to it.
Yeah. And that's just one small little caveat, kind of like the whole, the weird clowns that were in South Carolina back in, what was it, during the pandemic, 2020?
Oh, it happened for years. It was every year for a while where you could just get creepy clowns just standing off in the nowhere. And people were like, is that because of the movie It?
But then everybody got confused last year because new footage appeared and they couldn't tell if it was new footage or reposted. So everybody thought the clowns were back in South Carolina.
Yeah.
No, it just turned out it was a video that didn't get many views way back 2 years ago. So they changed the published date.
Let me change the meta information and repost it.
And they managed to post it at just the right time to make other people go, oh my gosh, and they reposted it. Yeah. So basically...
That's part of this article.
Yeah.
It basically says, although police now say that the residents have nothing to fear in regards to the box demon.
Yeah.
Their announcement has left far more questions than answers.
And it was kind of a creepy video. I mean, with a weird voice and all this other stuff. And then they left a gift. And the gift was basically an oversized, empty Amazon box, which, what a great way to not do your recycling.
So you told me, I was like, that's what we should do, is just go around and give away all of our Amazon boxes that we have to break down. And go, ooh, I'm a box demon. Here's a box.
Ooh, I'm not going to recycle.
It's probably somebody's neighbor who took one of their kids' little crafty things and then went over and dropped off the box to the other neighbor who said, hey, you got a box? I need a box to mail something.
Gosh.
But the lady in her drunken state, because it was a woman, you could tell, right? Maybe the drunk lady went to the wrong house. Because we've seen that before, where people have gone to the wrong house, right?
Yeah.
So what if they just dropped it off? They were playing a joke on their neighbor friend, right? Went to the wrong house because they're all drunk. Left it, somebody's freaking out. Hey, somebody's putting boxes on my porch. And then the other lady's like, hey, did you ever find a box for me? Yeah, I dropped it off on your doorstep. Then all of a sudden the box demon footage shows up and they're not going to say anything. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, no.
I just realized.
Practical joke goes wrong.
This box demon is dressed in a blanket hoodie, like a Snuggie. And it's the pastel version of the one my friend Devin got me.
This is what I'm saying, man.
I was just like... So, not even... I thought it was a clown costume at first.
No,
this is just a Snuggie.
Like, oh, that's so scary.
Actually, it is kind of creepy, though. I mean, this person's ready for a nap or murder. I don't know,
Well, pretty much if you blast them with a garden hose, they probably won't be ready for too much of anything.
Yeah, because that Snuggie...
Get out of here!
Gets heavy.
Yeah, you get them soaked down enough, they can't go very far.
Yeah.
I just thought it was kind of funny. It's like, oh, there we go.
I don't know, but
got nothing to fear from the box demons. Like, I didn't fear the box demon to begin with. Strap your crafty, your kid's crappy plastic plate or paper plate to your face. Like, I got you. So, speaking of lab-grown food.
Oh, great segue.
Yeah. So, lab-grown food could be sold in the UK within 2 years. What do you think about that? I just don't like the idea of it. I still don't. hey, can you get online and let's get a Walmart delivery of some lab-grown food? And somebody was trying to say that we already have it.
Yeah, 2023, lab-grown meat was cleared for sale in the United States. Huh. Upside Foods and Good Meat were two companies that cultivated chicken, allegedly. Good Meat is already known for their plant-based egg substitutes. I guess...
There you go. Cleared. If your hamburger or chicken sandwich
yeah.
tastes a little weird, like, why is this so weird?
They received approval for their labels from the USDA in March of 2023.
Well, the UK is getting involved. You know what that means?
What?
It's going to be worldwide.
Oh, gosh.
Because at least, Europe is like, we don't want like any weird food dyes and stuff, but we're going to go ahead and allow fake meat. Yep. So meat, dairy, and sugar grown in a lab could be on sale in the UK for human consumption for the first time within 2 years. This is how we turn into aliens. The idea is that we're all grays from the future.
Yeah.
Where you don't have like any real distinguishing features because you don't need them.
Yeah.
Maybe this is what takes them all away over time.
So
you have to wear a little, thin space gray little bodysuit and stuff. You don't have any genitals, so you can't procreate. You have to sneak in and steal DNA. Right?
Okay.
So you can keep the future going. And that's why they're like cutting lips and anuses off of like all the cows and stuff.
Would you stop?
We've seen the shows.
Oh, God.
The animal mutilation stuff, right? They're taking like weird stuff, like a little sliver of pancreas, right? Some liver. Maybe they need that. Kind of keep things going.
No.
All because of fake meat. Lab grown. So we lost the diversity in our genetic chain.
No.
You don't know. This could be how it starts. You don't know.
Well, I mean...
However, Italy and the United States... Here's what it says. Italy and the U.S. states of Alabama and Florida have instituted bans.
Yes.
I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
And they're typically the craziest, weirdest states. If Mississippi was in there, it'd be like, what do they know? Right?
Yeah.
If it was like Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, and New Mexico, it'd be like, and they're all like saying no,
yeah,
they know something.
Well, my thing is, if this happened in 2023, how come I haven't seen any of this lab meat yet?
Because they're keeping it on the down low. Maybe they just said, you know what, we can't really sell lab meat because it's just too gross, but we can put it in stuff.
Where can I buy lab meat?
And they're going to go, family-size lasagna. The little frozen lasagnas that you cook for your family contain 100% lab meat. It's probably in ravioli and stuff.
Here's where to buy it.
Thanks. You just put us on some kind of watch list now. We're going to get nothing but ads for fake meat.
Upscale U.S. restaurants in San Francisco and Washington, D.C.
Oh, of course. I mean, this is... So dog food made from the lab-grown meat was grown in factory vats, went on sale in the UK for the first time last month. And then in 2020, Singapore became the first country to authorize the sale of cultivated meat for human consumption. It's like Soylent Green. Maybe they got to use like little bits of real human for flavoring.
Don't do that, okay? Because I have this whole problem with the whole eating people, cannibalism.
I'm glad you do, because if you're okay with it, I'm like, well, I don't know about that.
Because, like, some very dystopian people, because, like, okay, late 90s, everybody was worried about Y2K. What if it comes down to cannibalism? And there were different people who had some very serious conversations, and I sat through a talk once that talked about how what we saw with Mad Cow, where prions were basically, in the brain and stuff like that, were becoming infected. The same thing happens when a species eats itself,
Yeah.
And they had actual anecdotal evidence of that in different countries. And that just terrifies me, because once it's in that system, like whether it's a small group of people or whatever, that's it. That's it. That whole group of people will forever have that propensity to have those issues.
And the hills have eyes.
So,
yeah.
No. And lab-grown meat doesn't make it any better. What if it's too DNA close to something?
Well, and the funny thing is, it's not funny, but the people growing the lab-grown meats are going to be the ones that try to get in there and set the rules of what's acceptable and the regulations and stuff like that. And there's even a little part of this article.
It's glove tears and
it's
tiny bit of DNA happens.
It's not deregulation. It's pro-innovation regulation.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, let's just church it up so we can all eat lab-grown meat. And they're like, if we can shorten this to less than a year while maintaining the very highest of Britain's food safety standards, that would help startup companies like ours to survive. So the country that loves beans on toast and considers that just fantastic, and fish and chips are going to be the ones that are like, hey, you should check out this amazingly bland lab-grown meat. You'll love it. And it's going to be the lab-grown meat British bake-off.
I'm on one of the websites now, one of the companies called Upside Foods, and their whole header is them.
Well, this person actually tasted some of this, right?
Grilling chicken.
They're trying to make like a potential sweetener out of lab-grown stuff. Mm-hmm. And it says, in this case, I'm allowed to taste it. It was incredibly sweet and slightly sour and fruity. Reminded me of a lemon sherbet. That's from Made Sweetly. So, and they act like they're making this lab-grown sweetener as a thing. And it's like, what about stevia? Right? That's supposed to be sort of a plant-based sweetener, but what about like saccharin and all the other sweeteners that have come out? I'm sure it's easier with the sweetener market to get in there to get approval, probably even more so than lab-grown meat. Lab-grown foods are ultimately ultra-processed foods, and we are in an era where we are trying to get people to eat fewer ultra-processed foods because they have health implications, Mr. Thomas said. Because he said these high-tech foods may not be as environmentally friendly. I agree with Mr. Thomas. And it's worth saying that these ultra-processed foods have not been in the human diet before. Agreed. So let's hope Mr. Thomas wins the fight. I don't want lab-grown meat. It's not like Star Trek where it's like Replicator.
Burger King is the first fast food company to entertain lab-grown alternatives into their menus. While they
so you figure McDonald's would be number one.
They have not actually accepted any lab-grown alternative meats, they did introduce their Impossible Whopper, which is a meatless patty made from plant-based ingredients.
Yeah, which is not healthy. You might as well eat a regular Whopper.
Although not lab-grown, this move reflects the growing trend of fast food restaurants prioritizing eco-friendly and sustainable options.
That's what they say. That's just the guys. If let's make it cheaper so we can basically charge you more.
Yeah. And that's the problem. That's like...
You're not fooling nobody.
That's the biggest holdup, according to this official chef resource website and Forbes. So I don't want lab-grown meat.
You're like, hey, guys, this lab-grown meat doesn't even have to be refrigerated. So we don't have to get refrigerated trucks to transfer stuff. We could just throw it in the back of your hatchback. And,
what I was telling you was, like, I was on Upside Foods. They have the lab-grown chicken, and their banner isn't a video, like a full video that plays, and it shows them grilling it, taking it off the grill, cutting it in slices, and it doesn't look like chicken. It does remind me of this one vegan thing. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Seitan. Seitan.
I don't know.
It reminds me of like that vegan option, which
that sounds disgusting.
It actually is pretty good, but they said that's their lab-grown meat on their website. I'm like, that don't even look like, nope. So,
yeah.
No. Nope.
So scientists have turned light into a super solid.
Okay.
Solid and liquid at the same time. This is evidently important.
Light was turned into a quasi-particle that simultaneously behaved like a crystal and a wave.
Yes. So a super solid is a paradox of physics. It's a material that's both solid and liquid at the same time. Right?
Yeah.
And it's a contradictory form of matter. It's first proposed like 60 years ago. And people thought that it was too nuts to actually exist, right? So in 2007, researchers unveiled the world's first supersolids. right? And it started with basically super flooding sodium and rubidium, respectively. Now, an international team of researchers has unveiled an entirely new route to super solidity.
Okay.
Harnessing light matter particles known as polartrons to create an exotic flowing crystal. In other words, this is a super solid made not from atoms, but from light itself. We actually made light into a solid. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So, what's a super solid? It's a state of matter that exists only in the quantum realm. They combine the rigid structure of a solid with the frictionless flow of a super fluid. Imagine a crystal that can move without resistance, its atoms hopping freely from within a fixed lattice. And so physicists have been fascinated by this since the 50s, when they first theorized that supersolids might actually exist. And so for decades, scientists have been searching for supersolids in like ultra cold atoms, particularly in helium-4. And helium-4 is supposed to be this amazing power source if we can ever get it. It's supposed to be on the moon and all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, researchers thought that they'd glimpsed a supersolid helium-4 under extreme pressure, but the results turned out to be a red herring. It's caused by other quantum effects. So creating a supersolid is kind of elusive, right? Until very recently.
Okay.
So in a new study, researchers across the world took a radically different approach. So instead of using ultra-cold atoms, they used laser light and a specifically designed semiconductor. So when they fire the laser at this piece of gallium arsenide, which is a material that's etched with these precise tiny edges, right? Ridges. When the light hits the ridges, it interacted with the semiconductor to create polatrons, these quasi-particles, right, which is basically a collection of a large number of particles that behave as if they were a single particle. It's basically part light, part matter. And then these polatrons, they're confined by the ridges, and it forces them into a crystal-like arrangement. But unlike ordinary solids, the structure is allows the polatrons to flow without resistance, exhibiting zero viscosity, no friction. And so we have the result of a super solid made entirely of light. And this is the first in the history of physics. Okay. And so it's really the beginning of something new. And so they confirmed their results, that their system entered a super solid phase. And then they measured like the density of the polatrons, and they exhibited a distinct modulation in space as if it was like crystallizing. And so then they had to look for signs of, coherence, to see if it would maintain its superfluid character. And so that means that despite forming a rigid lattice, the polatrons still move together in an unbroken wave. So this came from zmescience.com, right?
Yeah.
What's cool about it? Light-based supersolids open up a new avenue for exploring quantum states of matter. So unlike supersolids made from atoms, which require temperatures close to absolute zero, light-based supersolids will be easier to manipulate and study at room temperature. And this could help physicists to better understand the nature of supersolids and other exotic quantum phenomena. So basically for now, supersolid polatrons only exist in a controlled laboratory setting, but with further refinement, researchers may hope to find that this new phase matter might one day find applications beyond the lab, harnessing the weirdness of quantum physics for future technologies. So if it uses a crystal and the lattice has these little tiny ridges and stuff to create the wave of, light, the solid, what do you call them, positrons or whatever they are.
Yeah.
These lightsabers are going to be real. That means that you could be on a holodeck, like in Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
And interact. And that's how a holodeck creation can punch you in the face and you'll feel it. Right? So hologram man can be real.
Yeah.
So that's kind of crazy though, because if we won't even know how that's going to work. Like if you've seen something like that, like a wave of light flowing around all fluid-like, right? But having a crystalline structure, like with density to it. How would you even describe that?
I don't know.
Yeah. It's just nuts. I thought that was kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
Polartrons, that's what it is. Get some polartrons. Make your own lightsaber. Make shields. Is this the beginning of how we create shields?
I don't know.
Is this how we go? This is how we start? Like 300 years from now, Star Trek, the whole science fiction becomes fact. Science fiction becomes science fact. So you use the shield emitters, right?
Yeah.
To take the energy and harness it. And, this is how we create shields. So sometime in the future, they're going to look back at like some Star Trek series, right, where they used like magnetism to repel other lights coming at you. This is how you created a death ray gun.
Yeah.
So, or blasters, like with Star Wars, right? You just accelerate it. You make it, and then this is how you create the ray gun. It starts. One of these guys is going to blast their eyebrows off and go, "Whoa, dude, you see that?" And then somebody can say, "Hey, man, how can we get that to where you could just shoot that thing?" Because that's what happens, right? Sooner or later, somebody's going to just try to shoot it. If we put this in a piece of PVC and put some accelerant in it, and then we take this potato and put the potato in the other end, we can make a potato gun.
Okay.
So somebody's going to make a potato gun out of Polatrons. It's crazy, right? That's nuts. Yep. Super solid, both solid and liquid at the same time. That almost describes when you have a Pepto-Bismol emergency.
What?
Diarrhea.
Oh, gosh.
All right, so we're fixing to start to wrap up the podcast. There's two things we're going to talk about. One is some weird stuff that I put in here incidentally. It's about North Carolina, where we currently are. And evidently, we've had a super secret spy plane fly over North Carolina to go to the Pamlico Sound in North Carolina from, I think it's like Oklahoma or somewhere. And the question is, why?
Okay.
So it's a super spy plane. It's got the big radar dish on top.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of flying over. So a U.S. military aircraft fitted with sophisticated radar technologies was caught traveling 1,300 miles across the country to a UFO hotspot. And we're talking about like the Boeing Echo 3 Bravo Sentry.
Yeah.
And it's dubbed the America's Ultimate Spy Plane. And it left Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma around Thursday at 7 a.m. And it flew off the coast of North Carolina, where it made 2 circles around the Pamlico Sound and then returned to base at 2 p.m. It's 1,300 miles.
Yeah.
So the Bay has been the place for bizarre sightings such as glowing orbs, pulsating white lights, and encounters with grays. In 2019, a man captured a video showing 14 glowing orbs hovering above the water while on board a ferry in the Pamlico Sound.
Yeah.
And it says, however, there are also military installations in the area. Yeah, there's a lot of bases.
Yeah.
And so the Sentry, basically, it takes flight and it does airborne surveillance, command, control operations, and it basically is there to detect and identify and track targets in the skies. It's like, yeah, that's what it does. So it's got the 30-foot tall rotating radar dome on the top of it. It looks pretty weird, right?
Yeah.
And the Air Force has like 30 of these planes, roughly. And 26 of them are at Tinker. So the question is like, why?
I don't know.
This could be a maintenance run.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? But there's other ways to do a maintenance run. It's also entirely possible that something was out in the Pamlico Sound that they wanted to take a look at. My first thought was weather balloon. Or not weather balloon, but spy balloon.
Yeah.
And then my next thought is it's probably a spy boat. Because the Russians have these AGI boats that have like all sorts of sophisticated radars and stuff. They sit right off the coast and they just monitor electronic communications. They've been doing this for a long time, and this is not secret information. Years. Been doing it for years. China's been doing it too. Russia's been doing it. China's been doing it. Other countries try to do it. So it could be possible that this is a new type of craft, maybe even a drone boat that has all the listening equipment on it. And they sent this thing out to take a look at it.
Okay.
So that it could record all the electronic signals coming off of it.
Yeah.
Could be a maintenance run. Could be a downed aircraft like a UFO. Could be aliens under the ocean in the Pamlico Sound. So it could be them trying to maybe test something out to blast drones out of the sky using EM of some kind. I don't know. No. Yeah, but there's you got Cherry Points down that way, Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, which may have been renamed, I'm not sure. All these strange sightings and stuff.
Yeah.
And these aren't like just specific to the U.S. NATO's got 17 of these planes. UK's got like 7. France has 4. So they're kind of popular. But the radar and computer systems on this thing, they just gathers detailed information, like battlefield information, like position, tracking information, enemy crafts, aircraft, ships, friendly aircraft, naval vessels, all of that. It's kind of weird, though. Why fly out there and do 2 loop-de-loops and fly back?
See, one thing I've been trying to find, and I haven't brought it up because I can't find it, is we've had a lot more reports of different aircraft flying in the Linville Gorge.
Yes.
But it's not going past, just random conversations in Facebook groups or the Nextdoor app or something like that. I'm waiting to see if anybody's actually going to report upon it, and I haven't had much luck with that.
They probably won't. What are they going to report? Remember, I said this last podcast, it's time for training exercises to start.
Yeah.
And they do fly drones in the gorge. I mean, you got to train them somewhere.
Yeah.
So in the East Coast, there's few places like the Linville Gorge that kind of match the same terrain as like Afghanistan or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That's a good place. And we got helicopters that fly through the gorge all the time because that's where you get that training, that mountainous training. You can fly down in the gullies and stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't think they put like F-35s in there because I think it'd be kind of dangerous, but I don't know. It's kind of nuts though.
Yeah.
It kind of makes you wonder, why is that there? Why is the old Sentry flying around? The hubcap spinning in the back, sucking up all your electronic signals, getting all your browser history. It's like what? Is this person a threat? No, they're primarily about ill-fitting shoes.
Yeah.
So it's like, this guy likes pocket knives and Bigfoot and UFOs and other technical gizmos.
Yeah.
So I did want to put this under cryptid news because when we do the podcast, we have some stuff that we talk about. We have like a news section, conspiracy theory section, alien section, tech section, weird stuff section, cryptid news section, and paranormal section.
Yeah.
All of which have hit the same thing. Have hit those content categories. Except for when we don't have paranormal stuff, we don't talk about it. But under cryptid news, evidently witnesses have reported a midnight encounter with Owlman.
Okay.
And the reason why I put this in here is as a reminder to myself that I want to watch this episode of TV. Right?
Yeah.
So, and this is unexplainedmysteries.com. So witnesses report midnight encounter with Owlman on the road in Illinois.
Yeah.
And there's a nice AI picture. Because I've often thought, because there's Owlman sightings that happen in England.
Yeah.
And the description of what you see when you see an Owlman looks an awful lot like the description that you'd see when you're saying Mothman.
Yeah.
So Mothman doesn't make as much sense when people describe it. You're like, well, that sounds like a big bird.
Yeah.
Not a big furry moth. Or hairy moth. Whatever it is that makes the moth, whatever their wings are made out of. It's not hair. I don't know what it's like. You know what I'm talking about? It's like dusty. You ever touched a moth and you got the little dust stuff on your fingers? Like their wings?
Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, Owlman makes more sense. And Owlman's been reported all over the world. In different places, at different times, for different things. Now here's an Owlman sighting that happened in Illinois.
Yeah.
And this is on an Unsolved Mysteries TV show episode on Netflix, right?
Yeah.
Where it details the phenomenon of people encountering strange winged humanoids in locations across the states. And so there's one episode, or one incident that's been reported to Phantoms and Monsters a long time ago.
Yeah.
But according to the report, a couple have been driving home in Rolling Meadows, Illinois in 2022. And after midnight, they came across something they couldn't explain. As we got close to home, a very large winged creature landed on the road on the opposite side. It was dark. We could see it had massive wings that were larger than an SUV.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the wings were spread out, and we slowed down and stopped the car. And they described the Owlman as being roughly humanoid in shape, about 4 to 5 foot tall. It was no bird.
Yeah.
It was huge. And when I shone my lights on it, it shot up so fast into the tall trees and disappeared. That's
kind of...
We hear that a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they were keen to find out what they had seen, right? So they turned the car around. They went back to the same spot, but there was no further sign of the creature. It completely disappeared. Have you ever seen a moth shoot straight up in the sky?
No, but I've seen
Not
an
even
owl.
Mothra does that. Owls do.
I've seen an owl
And they're
just
totally
take off
silent.
so fast
Like,
and so quickly.
They're gone and they're quiet. You don't even hear them
Yeah.
coming. Moths just kind of flitter around, like
Yeah.
even like Godzilla and Mothra, being a kaiju and all that.
Yeah.
So I think Mothman is probably not a good descriptive. I don't. It sounds more.
But
To me, I think Mothman has been mislabeled or incorrectly identified, and it really should be Owlman.
okay. I think winged humanoid works as well.
Well, it does.
Some instances, because there's other instances where it's like, and I think the paranormal rangers, they talked about it, like barely humanoid entities out, like in the Navajo Nation, but they just happen to be like 5 or 6 feet tall.
Yeah, there was
You know.
a series of articles and stuff that I had at one time that I lost.
Yeah.
They were references to different places and stuff. And it basically was sort of saying, and I know somebody knows this and is probably going to correct me, that around the same time as the original Mothman sightings, military installation close by, they were training and doing like high altitude jumps, right? Mm-hmm. From aircraft. They were special forces type people or something like that, a special unit. And then they were using suits, like different types of suits.
Yeah.
Because they have wingsuits now.
Yeah.
And they were testing out different technologies and stuff. And one of them was like, they had helmets, and the helmets had like red eyes in them for seeing at night.
Yeah.
Before they turned green, because now everybody uses green for, like the night vision thing I got you, right? And they were using red back then. Of course, that turns off into a different thing with the glass that were people using in Vietnam around the same time. Where they were seeing demons through the red lenses. Mm-hmm. And allegedly, one of these people went off track during the jump and wound up landing into the area, like a TNT area, and that people had seen him. And the dude was basically had a wingsuit, and it scared him real bad, and they took off. They seen the red eyes and all that stuff. And that the wingsuit wasn't just a suit for doing a high-altitude jump, like a halo jump, but had its own propulsion.
But isn't that the Flatwoods Monster? Because the gas that was emitted?
No, that was a different type of craft. But again, in the same area around the same time, sort of, there's like something going on.
Yeah.
Secret.
Because the thing about the
Cold
Flatwoods
War
Monster
type
was no report of wings, but gases emitting from basically
noxious,
its uniform.
like fumes, like gases and stuff. And they were testing.
And very steampunk looking, or what we would call steampunk
like
now.
in the 50s and stuff, when NASA was doing its thing and all that sort of thing. They have like chariots, like winged or wingless chariots where they could use like rocket fuel to kind of propel itself along and all that. And that was the idea too, that somebody wearing this suit in this chariot could do its thing. So I don't know. So it seems like a lot of stuff goes back to military.
Yeah.
But
I do think it's interesting though, because like this Owl Man report, as well as like this Unsolved Mysteries episode, they don't get much traction. And I saw a paranormal investigator we know kind of get into it a little bit on social media, because it's like, look, Point Pleasant isn't the only place that these winged humanoids happen.
Yeah.
And people were kind of getting on her, and, it's Ashley. She was like, look, there's this instance and this instance. And, I mean, it's not just Point Pleasant, y'all. It happened. The most well-known stuff happened in the UK.
Yep.
There's other instances.
There's winged humanoid sightings around military installations.
Yeah.
Like Illinois has military installations.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania's got them. All up and down the East Coast. North Carolina's got them.
Yeah.
California's got it. Everywhere. They're all over. So I don't know. But I just think the idea of Mothman being described as a, 5 to 7 foot tall moth doesn't make sense. A bird like an owlman makes sense, especially if you can say, is this person wearing some sort of pop out James Bond fixed wing,
Yeah.
and can fly with it? Because you also had the whole Rocket Man thing. It was real sort of popular in the 50s through the 70s, where the guy would strap on a rocket suit or a rocket pack and like land in your arena and wave and all that stuff. All that stuff's around too. Now you got them now where, you know, there's companies that make them. I think Saab is actually one of them where, you know, the guy has the fuel pack on his back and on his arms, he's got 2 turbines and he can fly around and do all that. And that would make sense. 40 years later, you can minimize the technology. But, you know, for a long time, the Cold War, a lot of weird innovations were being tested. So it's entirely possible. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe somebody will see some stuff. If you guys, if anybody knows what I'm talking about, because I don't know exactly what I'm talking about with the whole possibility of it being sort of Cold War era technology testing. You know, we're doing jumps and
well, I was trying to find
secret military operations.
That one on Singular 14 that was talking about a human-like winged creature, but that was 1986, so way late. Yeah, but happened right here in North Carolina. So,
I mean, all you got to do is look at Team Red Bull. They got flying wing suits and they strap rockets to those guys. You see them whizzing around.
Yeah, but don't they call those bat suits or something?
Wing suit, bat suit. They don't call them moth suit.
Yeah, that's true.
Moths aren't exactly the fastest things out there. So, I don't know.
Want to hear some of that techno music?
Anyway, there you go. We do appreciate you taking time to listen to the podcast. It's extra long podcast. It's 7 minutes longer than it usually is, roughly, give or take a few. I do appreciate you taking time to listen. This has been our episode 333. Yep. Stranded astronauts, box demons, Spyplane over North Carolina, conspiracy theorists, or just spiteful, lab-grown food, and other news. So, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know.
Yeah.
Let me know. Bug her.
Or you can bug me on social media, CreepGeeks Podcast. You can find us all over. Join our Facebook group. It's pretty lively in there. And, yeah, thanks for tuning in.
There you go. Anyway, see you later. Take it easy. Bye, Sickle.
Bye.